There are many different Nikkes whose abilities are better suited for different scenarios. Some are very skilled at taking on groups of enemies, while others specialize in facing only one tough opponent. Although some models can excel at both, such cases are far and few between. Hello, my name is Artis, and today we'll look at one such case from Elysian. Enter Phamtom.
Phantom will come for you when night falls.
Phamtom is a non-limited Elysian character. After the rated banner for Phamtom goes away, we can get her from any special banner, ordinary banner, friendship banner, mid-quality mode, high-quality mode, and Elysian mode. Phamtom is a burst 3 water code attacker. Her weapon of choice is an assault rifle. It has a max ammo of 60 bullets and a reload time of 2 seconds. Her basic attack does 15.78% and her core damage is 200%. Compared to the other assault rifle attackers, Phamtom has a very long reload time. This means we need to be strategic with when to reload her gun. Despite having a slightly higher basic attack than average, she is not to the level of the current top tier options. On the plus side, Phantom's max ammo count is 3 times more than that of Scarlet, so Phantom will be reloading 3 times less often than the superior option. Phantom's significance lies elsewhere beside the basic stats. Her skill kit. Let's start with her gun. After firing 10 shots, Phantom gets a buff that increases her attack and distributed damage. The attack buff lasts for 5 seconds and the distributed damage buff lasts for 10 seconds. It takes Phantom 5 seconds to fire 60 bullets, so her fire rate is 12 shots per second. Since this buff is refreshed every second, Phantom will always have it active. Her burst skill only does one thing, distributed damage to all enemies. Distributed damage means the total damage is divided evenly among all enemies. If there's only one enemy, it takes all of the damage. When 5 enemies are present, each enemy takes 1/5 of the total damage. Now we look at Phantom's special ability. After firing a bullet at an enemy, Phantom asks, "Do you have a card?" The Rapturous answers, "No." With a cute grin on her face, Phantom pulls out 2 cards, a debuff card and a buff card. Now, very importantly, these 2 cards always appear together at the same time, and both cards last for 5 seconds. Phantom then throws the debuff card at that enemy, while she keeps the buff card. The process is completed. When Phantom fires another bullet at the enemy, she asks again. This time, the Rapturous has a debuff card, so it says yes. In this case, nothing happens. Phantom asks these questions with every bullet she fires, and every time, the Rapturous will answer yes. That is, until its debuff card expires, and the whole process repeats. Each enemy can only hold a maximum of 1 debuff card at any given time. The debuff card applies a debuff on its holder that lowers its defense. Also, any Phantom's bullet that hits an enemy with a debuff card will inflict more damage. Note that this only applies to the bullets coming from Phantom herself and not from other Nikkes. As for the buff card, Phantom can hold on to a maximum of 3 cards at a time. It increases her hit rate. This helps her with hitting the enemy's core more often. The buff can stack to 3. This is part 1 of Phantom's special ability. To put it simply, Enemy has no debuff, shoot one bullet at it to apply a debuff and to get a buff. When the debuff is active, cannot give another debuff to the same enemy. After 5 seconds, the debuff and buff expire. Shoot another bullet to apply a debuff and to get a buff. Rinse and repeat. Part 2 is a bonus effect to her Part 1 mechanic. When Phamtom is holding 3 buff cards, an explosion happens. All existing cards explode. This includes both debuff and buff cards. When a debuff card explodes, it inflicts damage to the card holder. The debuff card and its effects are removed after the explosion damage occurs. Phamtom's buff card and its effects are also removed after the explosion. But no damage is inflicted on Phamtom. Instead, Phamtom gets a separate buff that enhances the damage of her burst skill. This buff lasts indefinitely, but it is removed after Phamtom's burst skill is used. Let's have a closer look at the mechanic in its entirety. Depending on how many enemies are present, Phamtom's combat strategies will differ. In the first scenario, there will be multiple enemies versus Phamtom. Let's call this strategy Multi-Phamtom. After issuing a debuff card to 3 separate enemies, Phamtom triggers the explosion. All 3 enemies will be damaged by it. Multi-Phamtom needs to constantly alternate target between 3 enemies. The explosion is triggered immediately. However, when only 2 enemies are hit, the explosion is triggered every 5 seconds. This 5-second delay is a loss in DPS. So we want to make sure that all 3 enemies are hit if they are on screen. On the left, Phamtom focuses on 1 enemy at a time. On the right, Multi-Phamtom alternates between 3 enemies to trigger the explosion.
There's still plenty here to steal. There's still plenty here to steal.
When there are at least 3 enemies on screen, Multi-Phamtom performs better at clearing mobs. Can we say the same when there are only 2 enemies on screen though? Here, Multi-Phamtom is not ideal because every explosion is delayed by 5 seconds. Not only that, by alternating between enemies, Phamtom cannot focus on doing core hits. When there are only 2 enemies, Phamtom performs better by first debuffing both enemies. Then she focuses on 1 enemy at a time. And when the debuff expires, she reapplies them to the enemies. In the second scenario, Phamtom will face only 1 enemy. Usually, this is a boss fight. Let's call this strategy Single Phamtom. Phamtom triggers the explosion by either giving out 3 debuff cards or by holding 3 buff cards at a time. Since there is only 1 enemy and each can only hold 1 debuff card, she has to rely on getting 3 buff cards. Phamtom gets a buff card when issuing a debuff card. So, if she waits for the debuff card to expire, she can then issue another debuff card, and a second buff card will appear on her. Right? With a cute grin on her face, Phamtom pulls out 2 cards, a debuff card and a buff card. Now, very importantly, these 2 cards always appear together at the same time, and both cards last for 5 seconds. When a debuff card expires after 5 seconds, so does the buff card. Phantom cannot stack up cards because the previous card keeps expiring. That means Phantom will never have more than one buff card. That's half of her kit, which cannot be used in a battle. Multi-Phantom is very effective in battles with many enemies. Her explosion ability can be triggered repeatedly at any time without any cooldown. On top of that, she doesn't require burst, full burst, or anything of that sort. This sets Multi-Phantom apart from any other AoE Nikkes, making her one of the best for the job. Single Phantom cannot trigger her Part 2 explosion ability. Instead, she has to rely on her bullets to take down the enemy. Fortunately, her bullet damage is good, thanks to the debuff and buff cards. And the fact that she's not dependent on her burst skill makes her very versatile in team composition. It's a shame that Single Phantom cannot trigger her explosion ability. I wonder, is there really no way for her to trigger it? But the ability itself is directly tied to the number of enemies, which we don't have any control over. Alright, let's try and cook something for her, starting with troubleshooting. After Phantom shoots at a target, these two cards come in.
We live together.
We live together. Then 5 seconds later,
We die together.
we die together. Then they die. That right there is the problem. We need to stop them from disappearing at the same time. Desynchronization. Let's say the width of the cards is their 5 seconds duration. If we extend the duration of the buff card to 6 seconds, this would allow Phantom to keep that buff card even after the debuff card has expired. Then immediately, Phantom applies another debuff card and gets a second buff card. Now she has 2 stacks of buff cards with the duration refreshed. Do it for another cycle and the explosion can be triggered. This fix seems good, but there is a problem. In the current version of the game, there is no Nikke who can extend the duration of any buff. So we can't really do this for now. We're back to square one. What else can we do? What can we do? Come in.
Rabbity, take me to Elysium!
Oh, hello Alice.
I'm heading to what we call a clothing store. Wanna come?
Sure, why not?
Yahoo! Alice isn't home! Are you ready? I'm ready!
Oh, that reminds me. The last time we went to the clothing store together, it was to get you a bunny outfit.
Yes, Rabbity! Like this! Bounce, bounce!
Yeah, I remember. That was fun with you and Soda. Wait. Alice. Bunny.
Rabbity?
That's it.
You scared me!
Alice, follow me.
Usagi-san!
ええ、うさぎだってばよ。
Alright! Here I come!
Of course. It's true that none of the Nikke we currently have can extend buff duration in its true definition. That doesn't mean we are hopeless after a buff's expiration time. Let's use the same logic here, but with a different approach. We try to extend the buff card's duration to 6 seconds so that Phantom can get a second buff card before that 6 seconds. So, if the duration is fixed to 5 seconds, then Phantom just has to get a second card before that 5 seconds. And how do we do that?
Rabbity!
Go for it, Alice.
Bounce, bounce! Check it out! I've got ears and a tail! Aren't they adorable?
Yes, Alice, absolutely.
Come and get me!
After firing 90 bullets, Bunny Alice gives one extra stack to all existing buffs of her allies' Nikkes. Note that the ally Nikkes must be water cold to receive this extra stack. It takes Alice 6 seconds to fire 120 bullets or 90 bullets every 4.5 seconds. That means Alice can give Phamtom a free buff card before her first buff card expires.
Alice the Wonderland Bunny! Reporting in!
Then, when Phamtom issues another debuff card, she receives the third buff card and triggers the explosion. Every explosion only requires one free buff card from Alice, so the explosion will almost always happen after the second debuff card is issued. That is every 5 seconds. Single Phamtom supports her allies by debuffing their foe, and when her allies return the favor, casted the shadow of a new Phantom Thief. Raptures! Rapture in the Ark!
There's so many things to steal.
Let's go full power.
As usual, the thief comes out victorious.
Skill leveling. Skill 1 improves the effectiveness of your debuff and buff cards. This skill specializes in dealing with single target situations. Skill 2 affects the Part 2 explosions as well as the self-buff from her weapon. This skill is meant for situations with multiple targets. Burst skill affects the amount of damage done by her burst. This skill is effective for all situations. Starting at level 4, skill 1 and 2 take the top priority to level 7. Burst skill takes the last priority because it does not offer anything outside of its own occasional damage. Not only that, by investing into skill 2, the effectiveness of a burst skill is also improved. That is, 2 birds with 1 stone. Phamtom performs well enough at skill level 774. From here, Phamtom can be specialized according to how we use her. For fighting boss battles such as interceptions, solo raids, and union raids, her skill 1 takes the top priority to level 10. For fighting multiple enemies like in campaign stages, Elysian Tower, and the Simulation Room, her skill 2 takes the lead to level 10. For all situations, both skill 1 and 2 can be leveled up evenly. The last step is a burst skill. Now we move on to the next investment, her overload gears. Phamtom's main damage sources are her normal attack and burst skill. Her gun has a max ammo count of 60 bullets. In this graph, the colored bar represents the damage of Phamtom's bullets. The black bar means no damage done, a complete DPS loss. It takes Phamtom 5 seconds to empty a clip of 60 bullets, or 12 bullets per second, and 2 seconds to reload. Let's call this 7 seconds a DPS cycle. In each DPS cycle, about 28% of the time is a complete DPS loss. Phamtom misses out on 24 potential shots in every DPS cycle. Now we look at the graph for 2 clips of ammo. Within 14 seconds, Phamtom has to reload 2 times, resulting in these DPS losses. In this case, base Phamtom is missing 48 potential shots. By giving her an additional 100% max ammo, Phamtom only reloads once. Now she had DPS loss for only 14% of the time, or 24 potential shots. That is a difference in DPS. Thus, increasing her max ammo is beneficial. Phamtom's core damage is 200%, which is typical. However, as an assault rifle user, Phamtom's dole increases her damage dealt when attacking core. With the extra hit rate from her buff card, she can hit the enemy's core more often. So, combining these perks together turns core hit into a viable strategy. Assault rifles have low hit rate by default, which determines an accuracy of hitting an enemy's core. On the left, Phamtom has no extra hit rate from her gears. On the right, she has 2 lines of hit rate with a total increase of 24%. At close range, Phamtom can almost guarantee core hit without any extra investment. At mid-range, she hits the mark about 50% of the time. At far range, Phamtom can only hit the core once here and there. With an increase of 24%, there are instances where she lands multiple core hits back to back. If we want to fully take advantage of her dole, then hit rate option is a worthy consideration. Lastly, we have the attack option. It simply increases the damage of everything for Phamtom, so attack is a candidate as well. Let's take a look at the different builds for Phamtom's overload gears, starting with the universal build. The goal of this build is to improve Phamtom's performance in every situation. Ideally, we utilize all 12 slots on her gears. 4 of those can be dedicated to max ammo. This prevents multi-Phamtom from stopping her explosion during key moments of a battle. It also eliminates DPS loss for single Phamtom. The last 8 slots are for attack and element damage. This build cannot take any additional hit rate, so Phantom won't be able to fully take advantage of her duel. She can still hit the enemy's core thanks to her buff card, so not all is lost. It's just that she won't do core hits as often. On the plus side, not only everything about Phantom is improved, but also none of her main functionalities is compromised. For this reason, this build is the safest and most stable build. That is, if we can get all 12 lines on her gears, which requires insane amount of investment and luck. Let's have a look at a version of this build that we can actually get our hands on. With the budget version, we assume that only 8 slots are available. With a reduction in the slot limit, we have to make compromises. Since this build is meant to work with any situation, we take the options that are universally beneficial. Max ammo improves everything, so it takes 4 slots. Element damage is a big increase in damage output. However, it is only activated when Phantom has elemental advantage over her enemies. Attack is less of an increase in damage output, but Phantom will always have this effect. So, attack wins the last 4 slots. This version of the build works well, but Phantom misses out on a lot of damage potential when fighting enemies and bosses that are weak to the water element. To fix this, we can substitute 1 line of attack and max ammo with 2 element damage. This new version is less effective for both multiple and single target situations, but Phantom would perform quite well in battles with element advantage. Next, we have the Every Boss build. With this build, we improve Phantom's performance against all boss enemies, regardless of their element. Its ideal version can take advantage of 12 slots. We use 4 lines of max ammo and 4 attack here, and another 4 lines for hit rate to guarantee core hit at any range. This build is great for both multi and single Phantom. However, multi-Phantom does not benefit from hit rate, as she needs to alternate her shots between multiple enemies. And the absence of element damage makes Phantom perform less than what her true potential self can do to fire bosses. We can reduce hit rate to 3 lines and add 1 element here. As for the budget version, we work with 8 slots. If we compromise on the hit rate lines, we would get something similar to the budget universal build. But this is every boss build, so let's try something different. We can take out 1 max ammo and 1 attack, then add 2 hit rate lines to the mix. This budget version does not miss out on anything that its ideal version can offer. It just performs as a less efficiency. Lastly, we explore the Fire Boss build. Here, we focus on maximizing Phantom's damage against Fire Boss enemies. The ideal version of this build has 12 slots available, 4 of which are for element and 3 lines for max ammo. The last slots are taken by 3 attack and 2 hit rate lines. Although this build is decent for both multi and single Phantom against all type of enemies, it shines the brightest when Phantom fights against fire enemies, especially bosses. The budget version has a slot unlocked. 4 element lines must be in this build regardless of the version. Next, we can either take 4 max ammo to reduce DPS loss for Phantom, or substitute 2 max ammo with 2 attack to enhance the power of Phantom's bullets as well as multi-Phantom explosion damage. Or take in 2 hit rate to boost her bullet damage with more core hits. With only 2 max ammo, Phantom will be reloading more often compared to her 4-line counterpart. This means we need to be more mindful of when to reload. We want to avoid situations such as reloading during a 10 seconds full burst. Those are all of the builds that I can think of for Phamtom. Since Phamtom does not require anything from her gears to upkeep the functionalities of her skill kit, there is no wrong way to build her gears. Each of these builds serve a different purpose and requires a different amount of investment, so we should choose the one that fits our playstyle the most. Personally, I favor the universal build because it is very effective at pushing the Elysian Tower. But my playstyle is to have every Nikke specialize in their own element, so I choose the Fire Boss build. For the last part, we look at team composition for Phamtom. The fundamental rule is to have a burst 1, burst 2, and 2 burst 3 units in the team. The last member can be any of the above. Phamtom is a burst 3 DPS with AoE abilities. She also supports her allies by lowering the defense of her enemies. Since Phamtom doesn't rely on her burst skill to do damage, she can be an off-burst unit. With its flexibility, she can be in triple burst 3 teams. Let's start with the Elysian Maids, starring May Mask and May Anchor. This team needs a burst 1 and a burst 3 unit. The Elysian Maids are duo units. They want to be together in the same team to complement each other's skills. Both of them provide a party-wide attack buff, distributed damage buff, and reload speed buff. Distributed damage buff is a nice bonus, but Phamtom can only utilize it once every 40 seconds, so that's not really the main benefit. The reload speed buff, however, is fantastic for Phamtom since she has a long reload time. May Anchor is also the healer of the team. The burst 1 unit can be any Nikke that has cooldown reduction ability. Dorothy can be in this team. She's a cooldown reduction sub-DPS unit who deals distributed damage. Unfortunately, Dorothy has a max damage cap on her burst skill, so she doesn't benefit much from the DD buff. We have many choices for the other burst 3 unit. Any DPS would fit this role. Ideally, we want DPS Nikke with distributed damage attribute. For starter, Phantom's partner in crime, Quincy Escape Queen. Or a fantastic fit for this team, Brady. Not to mention the one with a rocket launcher, Scarlet Black Shadow. An interesting choice here is Guillotine Winter Slayer. Although she doesn't have distributed damage attribute, she does provide element damage buff for her water allies. And all 5 cards in this hand belong to the very water element. You get element damage, you get element damage, everybody gets element damage. Yeah, synergies. When the meme is replaced with the face of the game, this becomes a full Elysian team. Tactically tactical. This team is used for pushing the Elysian Tower, especially against fire enemies. Guillotine can be replaced with Helm and her favorite item. Now the whole Aegis squad is here, the ship that carries through the Elysian River. Next up is the majestic royalty team. Red carpet, for Crown is here. Crown provides a massive damage and reload speed buff for the whole party. She also taunts enemies, tanks damage, and put up shields for her allies. The burst 1 should have cooldown reduction ability. Her Majesty might be hungry, so let's put the fish on the table. Siren, or Little Mermaid, is a DPS with cooldown reduction capability. The faster her teammate can shoot, the more damage she will do. Any DPS can fill the other burst 3 slot. A noble like Lumella Winter Owner would fit like a glove here. Aside from her DPS role, she enhances everyone by making bosses take more damage. To fully activate Crown's damage buff, a healer is required. Bunny Alice fits that role. She can heal, increase burst regen, and reloads a portion of her allies' magazines. Not to mention, she unlocks single Phantom's full potential. Alternatively, Naga is a fantastic pick. She heals not only HP, but also the cover for her teammates. And with a core damage buff, everyone will do more damage to enemies that have a core. A popular option for this role is Helm with her favorite item. Helm is a DPS with healing and support abilities. She heals in two different ways. Although her auto heal is enough to unlock Crown's damage buff, the amount of healing itself is very low. To keep everyone alive, her burst skill gives everyone a lifesteal ability during full burst. She also has a party-wide damage buff of her own. Interestingly, the Drunk Pirate is a viable option here. May Mass is not a healer, so only a portion of Crown's damage buff can be activated. However, by using Mass burst skill instead of Crowns in every third burst cycle, the total damage buff becomes quite incredible. Combining both reload speed buffs from these two grants access to instant reload ability for the whole team. Phantom's long reload time becomes inconsequential here. Beside the royal team, there is another that can accomplish similar things, but with a less magnitude. It's the schoolgirls team. Tia constantly taunts enemies to keep her friends safe while providing damage buff and shields for them, and Naga will keep her alive with her healing. Tia is a re-enter burst 1, meaning a burst 1 unit is still needed. Anyone with cooldown reduction is welcome here. Litter has great synergy with his team. Her ability to repair cover helps Tia a lot since Tia cannot provide buff with a destroyed cover. And Tia's damage buff is universal, so any DPS will be enhanced here. Naga's massive core damage buff really benefits Phantom and other DPS that adopt the core hit strategy. Unfortunately, there is no spot for Bunny Alice here to help Phantom with stacking hit rate buff cards. Functionality-wise, this team is similar to the previous Crown team, but less powerful. The upcoming cards are gonna be for Triple Burst 3 setups. Alright, take it away, Walking Fossil! Grave provides two different damage buffs, Universal and Peace damage. Phantom benefits from the Universal damage buff, but not the latter since she has no Peace attribute. The other DPS can be any of the Burst 3. Same as usual, this team wants a Burst 1 unit with cooldown reduction. D Killer Wife has some synergies here. She has one of the fastest cooldown reduction ability in the game, and she slightly buffed Peace damage for her team. Again, Phantom doesn't benefit from Peace damage buff, so D can only offer CDR here. But with her, we can summon the best cop with her favorite item, Miranda. Miranda buffs attack and crit damage for two of her allies. Those are great buffs for Phantoms and the other DPS. There's already one fossil here, might as well get another one. Litter lowers cooldown, buffs attack and repairs cover for her allies. If healing is needed, Bunny Alice is welcome here. Since Litter can repair covers, this team can get away with not having a healer. In this case, we can replace Alice with another DPS burst 3 to form a triple burst 3 team. When the other two DPS are water code, Guillotine Winter Slayer is great here. She buffs element damage for her water code teammates, but her burst skill is required. And Quincy, like most other DPS units, also requires her burst skills to be used. One of the three DPS units here has to skip their burst. Thankfully, Phantom doesn't rely on her burst skill, so problem solved. Quincy takes the odd burst cycle, while Guillotine takes the even ones. Phantom becomes an off-burst DPS doing damage mainly from her normal attacks. We can take out Quincy for the popular meme. Delusional Dorothy takes the odd burst cycle in this case. If we want to use Phantom burst skill in this kind of setup, we can uninstall Guillotine, then install Boom in her place. Alec is another DPS with element damage buff for water units. Unlike Guillotine Winter Slayer, she doesn't need burst to provide element damage buff. Now, the hallucinating Dorothy takes the odd burst cycle, while Phantom goes for the even ones. Oh, it's time for the show! The Lucky Bunnies! These bunnies are dual units and want to be in the same team. Blanc is the avatar of support. She heals and protects allies with a single shield. In PvE, this shield is weak, but at least it can absorb any one high damage attack from enemies. The white bunny also improves her team damage in the form of debuff. Her burst skills makes all enemies on screen takes more damage. She also prevents one ally from dying for a short period of time, though this is very tricky to pull off. The black bunny Nor has a small attack buff, hit rate buff, and ammo refund for her team. We take a burst 1 with cooldown reduction ability here. No specific requirement for the other DPS unit, any of them will do. Modernia is an amazing DPS with some good synergies here. She's strictly an off-burst DPS when fighting bosses, and when she's around, everyone gets a hit rate buff. Being an assault rifle user, this is beneficial to Phantom. Combining her own buff card with Nor's and Modernia's buffs improve her accuracy at shooting Rapture's cores. There's another pair of bunny cards beside the white and black set. It's the white and red. When Nor is absent, Blanc requires Rouge. Rouge is a cooldown reduction support who can massively increase max HP for her teammates. Phantom doesn't benefit from this increase in max HP, but there is someone else who does. The Glass Princess, Cinderella. This pilgrim is a monster of a DPS. Her damage scales with max HP. Aside from Blanc, Phantom doesn't really get any significant buff from her allies here. In this team, Phantom is more of a water barrier breaker rather than a main DPS. Not to mention, the synergies here feel so clunky. Like, the only synergy seems to be the fact that there are two heretics. Anyway, those are the last main cards in my hand. Overall, Phantom is extremely flexible when it comes to team composition. An awesome unit with very unique skill kit. That is everything I have regarding the Phantom Thief. Wow, that was a long journey. Thank you for sticking around until the very end. Here's a little animation for you. It's not much, but enjoy. Someone's at the door. Oh, Grave! Thunder? Come on in. Maybe it's about to rain. So, is there something you need? Or is it for Cinderella? Of course, it's always for Cinderella. So what is she looking for? Wait, could it be there are not enough mirrors? No, that's not it. Site 01 is practically walled with mirrors by now. Grave?